Very good day, and welcome to our first lesson in our study of the book of Ephesians. This is sort of an introductory lecture, only to give some background to the formation and the timing of this book. Ephesians is considered to be one of Paul's most important epistles, and in fact is considered to be one of the most important and influential letters ever written, secondary to that of Romans. Paul started the church in Ephesus around 53 AD. And on his second journey, on his third missionary journey, however, he went back to Ephesus and stayed there for a few years and supported the church and built it up. But he also developed some considerable problems, even though he taught against paganism and against the pagan doctrines. He developed problems because Ephesus at that time was the center of a large temple to Diana, and the people who were in that area made a great deal of living by making silver amulets, silver mementos, silver type of ornaments that they sold because of this temple of Diana. And Paul and his associates preached against this. So there was some considerable animosity against Paul, to the point that he had a great deal of trouble staying in Ephesus. And after he left because of this uproar, he did come back again in AD 57 and met the leaders of Ephesus on an island outside the area of Ephesus itself, on an island called Miletus, and he sent them to meet him there, and had the farewell meeting between the leaders of the church of Ephesus and Paul. And this was a sad meeting. This was the type of meeting which people understand this is the last time they may ever see each other. But he did not go into the city of Ephesus at that time. He was on his way to Jerusalem, where there was already a great deal of foment against him. But he went there anyway, and was set upon there, and actually ended up being taken to Rome and put in jail in Rome for a number of years. And while he was in Rome, he wrote what's known as the prison epistles. These are the epistles, the letters to Ephesus, to the Ephesians, to the Philippians, to the Colossians, and to Philemon. And these were written while he was in a prison in Rome. The letter to the Ephesians was written primarily to support Christian doctrine and to show Christian the spiritual blessings we have as Christians. It was not primarily to put down disagreements in the church and problems in the church, although there were problems which later developed. If you go to 1 Timothy, it says then, in the very first chapter of 1 Timothy, it says, "As I urged you when I went into Macedonia, remain in Ephesus." This is Paul talking to Timothy. "Remain in Ephesus, that you may charge some that they teach no other doctrine, nor give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which cause disputes rather than godly edification which is in faith." Now the purpose of the commandment is love from a pure heart, from a good conscience, and from sincere faith. This was his instructions to Timothy, to the church at Ephesus, because even though he, at the time of writing the letter to the Ephesians, there was no real problems in the church, and the letter was written primarily to enforce doctrine and to enforce the blessings that we have as Christians. Problems did arise because people came in to try to enforce and to start some pagan practices and to unite pagan practices with those of the Christian doctrine. He was telling Timothy at that time to avoid and to stand up against such practices. So the church at Ephesus did go on for a while without any trouble, but then, as we just said, there was some strange practices came in to that area. The church at Ephesus was also mentioned in the book of Revelation as the first church in chapter 2 of the book of Revelation, where it says these things: to the angel of the church at Ephesus write, these things say he who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, who walks in the midst of the 7 golden lampstands. I know your works, your labor, your patience. Now don't forget, we're not saved by our works, but he says, I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil. And you have tested those who say they are apostles and are not, and have found them liars. And you have persevered and have patience and have labored for my name's sake, and have not become weary. Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love. Remember therefore from whence you have fallen. Repent and do the first works, or else I will come to you quickly, and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. But this you have, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. In Revelation, Christ is reprimanding the church at Ephesus for leaving its first love. It is interesting that the church at Ephesus finally faded away and died during the 2nd century. So the church, in spite of being founded by Paul, having a great start, being the source and the context of Christian doctrine and spiritual blessing, went on to fade away because of the practices which it later incorporated into the church. And this is what Christ was saying in Revelation, that they left their first love. Even though their works were good, they left their first love and did not repent. So this is the book we're going to start reading, the book of Ephesians, about this church at Ephesus and about Paul's epistle to this church and what he's trying to accomplish. Paul wrote this around 57, 58, 60 AD. There is some controversy now as to whether Paul actually wrote this, even though it says that I, Paul, at the very first of the epistle. However, the majority of people who study this still believe that Paul was the author of this epistle, and that it comes from his hand while he was a prisoner in a jail in Rome. So this is the epistle we're going to start reading next week as we start in chapter 1 of the book of Ephesians. I hope you'll join me for it. Bye for now. Hope to see you then.